Hey everyone, if you love to watch history, hit that subscribe button and watch the video till the end because video is going to be very interesting. Your support keeps this channel going. Uncovering mass graves, a city confronts its past. One of the most haunting aspects of the Tulsa Race Massacre has been the question of the dead. For decades, survivors spoke of mass graves where victims were hastily buried, but their claims were often dismissed or ignored. In recent years, however, modern technology and persistent advocacy have brought those stories back into sharp focus. Archaeologists, historians, and forensic experts launched new efforts to search for evidence of mass graves around Tulsa. Using ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive techniques, researchers identified multiple sites that showed strong signs of large, unmarked burials. In 2020, excavation at Tulsa Cemetery, a city-owned graveyard, uncovered human remains consistent with massacre victims. Further excavations revealed more bodies buried in simple coffins without markers, lending chilling confirmation to the oral histories passed down through generations. The discovery was a sobering reminder of how thoroughly the massacre had been buried, not just figuratively but literally. Tulsa's leaders promised to continue investigations and to treat the remains with respect and dignity. Memorial services were held, and some descendants of massacre victims participated in reburial ceremonies, offering a long-overdue act of honor to those whose lives were stolen. Yet the discoveries also reignited painful questions. Why had it taken so long? Why had the city ignored survivors' accounts for so many decades? And what would be done now to reckon with the truth that had literally been unearthed? Survivors speak. Voices from Greenwood. The testimony of survivors has been among the most powerful forces keeping the memory of the Tulsa Massacre alive. People like Viola Fletcher, Hughes Van Ellis, and Leslie Benningfield Randall, all over 100 years old, have become living links to the past, carrying memories that demand acknowledgement. Their stories share common themes: the terror of being awakened by gunfire and smoke, the confusion of fleeing for their lives, the horror of seeing their neighborhoods obliterated, the sense of betrayal by the institutions that were supposed to protect them. Viola Fletcher recalled the smell of smoke and the sound of planes flying overhead as her family fled. "I still see black men being shot, black bodies lying in the street," she said in her congressional testimony. Hughes Van Ellis, known affectionately as Uncle Red, spoke of the economic devastation that followed the physical destruction. "We lost everything, our homes, our businesses, our church. Our lives were never the same," he said. Their testimonies are not just about remembering, they are calls to action. They challenge America to not simply mourn the past but to make amends for it. The courage of these survivors has inspired new generations to continue the fight for justice, truth, and reconciliation. Greenwood's rebirth. Then and now, remarkably after the massacre, many Greenwood residents found the strength to rebuild their community. Without government help, without insurance payouts, and against systemic opposition. By the mid-1000s, 926 Greenwood had once again become a vibrant center of black life. New businesses sprang up, churches were rebuilt, and homes rose from the ashes. The spirit of Black Wall Street lived on, fueled by an unbreakable sense of determination and resilience. But over time, other forces chipped away at Greenwood's vitality. Urban renewal projects in the 1000s, 960s, and 70s, often dubbed Negro removal by critics, led to the construction of highways that cut through the heart of the neighborhood, displacing residents and businesses yet again. Today, only a fraction of the original Greenwood district remains. Much of what once was has been paved over, replaced by parking lots, highways, and modern buildings. Yet in recent years, there has been a concerted effort to preserve and honor what remains. The Greenwood Cultural Center, the Greenwood Rising History Center, and the John Hope Franklin Reconciliation Park stand as tributes to the community's history and its ongoing legacy. Entrepreneurs, artists, and activists are breathing new life into Greenwood, aiming to reclaim the spirit of black excellence and resilience that once defined it. Still, tensions remain over who controls the narrative and who benefits from Greenwood's resurgence. Some descendants argue that efforts to commemorate the massacre have sometimes been commercialized, turning tragedy into tourist attractions without adequately addressing economic disparities. The struggle for authentic restoration, both physical and economic, continues. National recognition. Tulsa in the spotlight. The centennial of the Tulsa Race Massacre in 2021 brought unprecedented national attention. President Joe Biden visited Tulsa, becoming the first sitting U.S. president to formally acknowledge the massacre. In his speech, he honored the victims and survivors, condemned the racial violence, and called for efforts to address the continuing impacts of systemic racism. "We can't just choose to learn what we want to know, not what we should know," Biden said. "We should know the good, the bad, everything. That's what great nations do." The centennial prompted major media coverage, documentaries, educational programs, and renewed calls for reparations. Books like The Groundbreaking by Scott Ellsworth and Black Wall Street by Hannibal Johnson, along with TV shows like Watchmen and Lovecraft Country, introduced new audiences to the story of Tulsa, embedding it more firmly in the national consciousness. Yet even with increased recognition, the fight for justice remains unfinished. Survivors and advocates continue to push for reparations, pointing out that mere acknowledgement is not enough to repair the economic devastation caused by the massacre. Lawsuits have been filed on behalf of the few remaining survivors, seeking damages for the harm inflicted in 1921 and the decades of systemic discrimination that followed. For many, Tulsa is not just history, it is a current and ongoing battle for justice. The broader impact lessons from Tulsa, the Tulsa Race Massacre, is not an isolated event. It is part of a broader pattern of racial violence and systemic injustice that has shaped American history. From Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898 to Rosewood, Florida in 1923, Black communities across the country faced violence, destruction, and dispossession. Tulsa stands out for the scale of its destruction and the success of its cover-up, but its underlying dynamics, white resentment of Black prosperity, institutional complicity, and the deliberate erasure of history, are tragically common. Understanding Tulsa helps illuminate the roots of ongoing racial disparities in wealth, education, health, and political power. It also challenges simplistic narratives of American progress, reminding us that violence and injustice have often coexisted alongside dreams of freedom and equality. Most importantly, Tulsa teaches that history must be remembered honestly, not sanitized, not forgotten, if we are ever to move toward genuine reconciliation and repair. The survivors' courage, the descendants' determination, and the community's resilience offer a model of what it means to demand justice, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Moving forward, healing the wounds of history as America confronts the legacy of Tulsa, several paths forward are being debated. Reparations, direct payments, scholarships, tax incentives, and business grants are proposed as ways to rebuild wealth in the Black community. Education, incorporating the history of the massacre into school curricula, ensures that future generations know the full story. Memorialization, honoring the victims with monuments, museums, and cultural centers, preserves the memory of Greenwood's vibrant life and its brutal destruction. Economic development. Investing in historically Black neighborhoods like Greenwood can help reverse the long-term effects of displacement and economic suppression. Healing will require not just remembering the past, but actively repairing the harm it caused. It demands confronting uncomfortable truths and dismantling systems that perpetuate racial inequality. It calls for sustained commitment, not performative gestures. Above all, it requires listening, really listening, to the voices of survivors and their descendants, and centering their needs in any efforts at restitution and reconciliation. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more amazing history content, and don't forget to hit the bell icon.